Get ready to embark on an economic journey as we unveil the heartbeats of the Rwandan business landscape. This is the Business Age, your front row seat to the economic renaissance of the land of 1,000 hills. Join us as we traverse the bustling markets of Kigali, delve into the success stories of Rwandan entrepreneurs, and explore the dynamic forces shaping the nation's economy. From the boardrooms to the street vendors, we'll bring you the voices of the visionaries and the minds behind Rwanda's economic evolution. Discover the fusion of tradition and technology, witness the agricultural innovations transforming rural communities, and explore the cutting-edge innovations propelling Rwanda into a new era of economic prosperity. From the city lights to the rural landscapes, every business is a story waiting to be told. Hello there. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of The Business Age. On today's edition, we'll be taking a closer look into the Forex regulation changes that were recently announced by the National Bank of Rwanda. We will also have a conversation with different players to get to understand how these particular regulation changes will impact businesses in real estate as well as also human resource. You'll be with me, Naringwa Fiona Muthoni. Thank you so much for making time to speak to us. During today's episode, we are seeking to just get clarification as well as to understand further the changes that have been put in place by the National Bank of Rwanda. If you could start by highlighting for us, what are these Forex changes? What do we need to know?
Allow me to recall first the main mission of the Central Bank of Rwanda, the National Bank of Rwanda, for the listeners to know that the mission of the Central Bank of Rwanda, because it is aligned too much to this regulation we are talking about. Basically, Fiona, the National Bank of Rwanda has a general mission of safeguarding the local currency, actually by ensuring price stability, but also sound financial system. So, but from that very general mission of the central bank, we have specific mission. Among the specific missions of the central bank, there is the management, but also organization of foreign exchange market. By organizing that market, the central bank put in place regulations and laws governing that market, but also ensures compliance through enforcement. So it is in that context that the central bank has put in place that regulation. And I want to recall also that this regulation we are talking about, I mean the regulation of foreign exchange operation, is not new. It's not new because it's an amendment of the existing regulation we have, the regulation of 2022. So this regulation of 2025 is an amendment. We have actually amended a few of the articles, not the all regulation. We only amended 4 articles. The article 1 is related to interpretation or meaning of some keywords. The second article is about permitted activities. The third one is about unauthorized activities and related sanctions. And the last one, but not mean the least, is about whistleblowing mechanisms. So basically, Fiona, those are the 4 articles that were amended. And the rationale of this regulation of 2025 is actually the enforcement of the existing directives, the existing regulations with regard to those malpractices on FX market. So basically, this new regulation is clarifying the permitted activities, but also unauthorized activities and the sanctions for violations.
What would you say were some of the trends and challenges that signaled the National Bank of Rwanda to put in place these regulation changes and also stricter penalties?
As I recall, the National Bank of Rwanda conducted a survey in 2023, and we observed a number of malpractices on FX markets. This includes pricing goods and services in foreign currency, but also pricing rentals, particular rentals in foreign currency. I mean rentals, commercial buildings and residential buildings. So having observed this, so we issued warning letters to the wrongdoers, but we continued to see some people still pricing in foreign currencies. That's why we said we should put in place a mechanism. We should put in place an instrument to sanction the malpractices because the warnings were not enough to those wrongdoers.
And why would you say it's important for businesses and individuals in Rwanda to transact in Rwandan francs instead of foreign currencies?
So, in fact, it's a good question. So, when people start pricing in their activities, they're pricing goods and services in foreign currency, so it has a negative impact on the economy in general. One way I would say that if people are in their daily activities, they are using foreign currencies, the demand for local currencies diminishes. It diminishes. And also it leads to depreciation in its value. And consequently, that phenomena may lead also to inflation. It may lead to inflation, but also to a decrease of the purchasing power of the citizens. And consequently, it also undermines the economic stability. Two, when people are using foreign currency in their daily businesses, in their routine activities, it causes much pressure on FX market because it increases demand for FX, and this is what we call an unnecessary demand. Let me give you an example, Fiona. Let's say we have business people and we have individuals. They are coming to Forex Bureau seeking for foreign currency or USD. Let's say among of those people who have business operators, you have those who are running small business around the town, but they are seeking the USD to pay for rentals. You see, so that pressure, that high demand on FX market, it increases the pressure on FX market to a point where it even affect the available FX. So then when people are coming in a big number searching for the FX, then it may also cause the increase of the exchange rate because of that unnecessary demand. And consequently, it may also harm the international trade operations. So thirdly, when people are using foreign currency in their operations, it leads to what you call dollarization of the economy. You may find yourself, every person, whatever business is doing, even a street vendor selling the vegetables, may be requiring you to pay in foreign currency in USD. That one would be the worst situation. So we may say that if we allow people continue using or transacting foreign currency for local transactions, it's very harmful to the national economy in the three ways that I've said above.
You've given us a clear picture on how the use of the Rwandan francs can be able to reduce inflation as well as help in stabilizing the economy. But some people still see these regulations as restrictive. On the side of consumer, how would you say it's going to protect them? And how have you seen them reacting to this?
Consumers will be protected because once we safeguard the integrity of the local currency, we are also managing the inflation. We are managing the inflation, but also we are increasing the purchasing power of the citizens. So you understand that indirectly, all the citizens, they benefit. But also, let's say for a tenant who is renting a house, he has been charged in USD. But now, if this regulation is prohibiting to be charged in USD, now he's paying in Rwandan francs. So that burden now is no longer on the tenant. I think he or should benefit from this regulation on one way or another.
Yeah, and also one of the changes from the 2022 regulations presently is the introduction of penalties. Could you elaborate further on these penalties and what do they mean for people who repeatedly do not adhere to the regulations?
According to this regulation, except for the payments of imports and export for goods and services, apart from the transactions made by hotels, casinos, international schools, and tourism industry, any person or any business pricing or transacting in foreign currency commits an administrative fault. Consequently, he or she is sanctioned as follows. Category 1 for pricing in foreign currency. When you are doing it for the first time, you are sanctioned with 5 million Rwandan francs. At second time and above, 10 millions. The second category of malpractice that is sanctioned is transacting foreign currencies. So when you are caught for the first time transacting foreign currency, you are charged 50% of the transacted amount. At the second instance or recidivism, you are charged 100% of the transacted amount. The third category of malpractice and the sanctions associated is calling for or participating in foreign currency auctioning. In such a case, when you are caught, you are charged 50% of the auctioned amount. So basically, Fiona, those are three categories of sanctions, or violations, and related sanctions.
Rwanda has positioned itself as a hub for different sectors, for within the region, also within the continent. And also when you're looking at some of the statistics, Rwanda is the second country on the continent when it comes to ease of doing business. We are attracting foreigners to come into the country. With these kind of restrictions, will it in any way limit the foreign direct investments? Will it limit investor appetite? How do you see that changing the space?
I would say that this regulation is not restricting foreign direct investment. It is not. In a sense that though we have restrictions, but also we have exemptions. And as you know, I've already said at the beginning, you have specific sectors that are exempted, like tourism, hotels, international school, international trade, and so on and so on. So I would say that these restrictions are coupled or paired with exemptions, and with that exemptions, it also helps the investors to come and invest in Rwanda.
What are the main sectors, would you say, that this regulation targets? And how have you seen the feedback also from the public when the regulation was shared?
Yeah, actually the malpractices, as I already said at the beginning, so many malpractices were observed in rentals, I mean commercial and residential buildings. So people the landlords charging rentals in foreign currency. So that's the big part, the big area where the malpractices are. And the feedback from the public, Fiona, I would say that tenants are happy for this regulation because it is, the regulation is protecting them. But also the landlords, some they understand the rationale because through the awareness campaigns, through the public engagement, and also the meetings we are having, so explaining the rationale of this regulation. So some of them, they are understanding the rationale of it because it is on the benefit of the national economy and also to the people in general. So most of the people, they are welcoming, and those who are not yet understanding the rationale, we are explaining the rationale of the regulation, and we hope that people will understand and welcome it.
And what are the systems that have been put in place to really get to monitor these changes?
Thank you, Fiona. One is that we are calling the public to report to the central bank or to enforcement authorities any malpractice that we've talked about, pricing in foreign currencies or transacting foreign currencies. So that's channel one. But also the central bank, we do regular inspections. We do regular inspections. As I've already said, from the survey conducted, it was through the inspections. So the inspections will be carried out to see if people are compliant with this regulation.
How does this policy, how would you say it aligns with Rwanda's broader goals under the Vision 2050, when you're even looking at the financial sector development and also competitiveness within the Rwandan market, regionally, also across the borders?
I would say that once our local currency is stable, it also raises confidence to the investors. So meaning that when our currency is stable, it also contributes to the growth of the national economy, but also attract more investment from abroad. So I would say that this regulation, and among many others, are in line with the global vision we have in the country.
During this conversation, we'll be primarily focusing on the forex changes and how they're going to impact the different players. And for you, maybe just start by painting us a picture, especially when you're looking at the work that Umurava does. How does it even connect to the forex changes?
We are a talent marketplace platform where companies can come to hire and outsource, African digital talents, and the companies can come from all over the world or across the continent. And on another side, we support African talents, primarily talent based in Rwanda, but we're also extending this to East African countries, where now these African talents can access jobs, both in the local companies, but also in the global companies. If we talk about the jobs, when you do a job, you are paid. And you can understand we have a talent based in Rwanda, Kenya, Uganda, different currencies. We support companies based in Rwanda, Rwandan francs. We support companies based in US, USD. We support companies in UK, pounds. We support companies in francs, euros. Already, I have already mentioned 7 currencies that will actually do the exchange between Umurava itself. And you can easily understand that sometimes we are being required by different companies have their own preferred currencies where they want to do payments for these people they have hired.
From your own just perspective, how did you take these changes and how do you see them changing the larger and impacting the real estate?
Now, these changes, I believe the law has been there since 2022, but the punishments and penalties were vague. It was not straight. Right now, what they did, they just told its face on, hey, you do this, this is what is waiting for you. And I think it's been long coming. It's necessary because we need that stability. We need that stability. Of course, it's going to add a little bit of hurdles here and there in terms of transactions and how they are conducted. It's going to require more teaching and more changing, trying to abide to the law, especially coming from us, real estate agencies, and as well developers, landlords. Everybody has to adapt to this. It's going to change slightly, but it's necessary to stabilize our currency.
And now for you, an example, how are you going to change and navigate around this, especially when you're looking at majority of the people you work with are abroad? What changes are going to put in place?
First off, the first things we did was, of course, scratch that $sign or euro sign wherever it was. We've already done that, so across all our communications. But as well, it's mainly right now, even most people know we produce a lot of content. What we are trying to do is to really kind of create a learning curve for the foreign investors, people, diaspora, who don't understand why, because the question is why. You see, the typical thing was, you find a house, they tell you a number, you ask, oh, how much is that in dollars? I'll tell you $100,000. And then you'll be like, okay, let's have a deal. And then you'll transfer the $100,000 to the seller's account and that's it. Right now, there's just an introduction of maybe 2 or 3 things, which is, it will still go the same way, which is how much is the house? I'll tell you in Rwandan francs. And then the first step will kick in. How much is that in dollars? I'm going to be like, oh, let me check the reference on the National Bank foreign exchange rate. And then I tell you the number. If you're comfortable with that, before you pay, then what we are trying to put into our system is we'll actually have to get you here so that you open an account here and then move your foreign currency into the local account but in dollars, and then make the exchange yourself so that you can pay in Rwandan francs. So there is that maneuver that just added. So it's a process thing. There's nothing that changed, just a process thing.
I think for on one side, it makes sense, right, to every country to prefer that we actually want to regulate or to have a similar kind of way of doing something. If we are in Rwanda, let's make sure that our Rwandan, currency is the one we are actually going to use for business kind of activities. And to us now, I can give you an example. So there are some of the workforces we have in global companies that we have been paying in now USD, but they are based in Rwanda because their employers pay them in USD. So by now, we have already started to cope up with the policy. Now if we are to send them their salaries or wages, we have already now started to convert them into Rwandan francs. Of course, it brings that debutation part, but when you look at it, is friendly locally to actually make sure that we pay people in Rwandan francs. But it brings now a challenge when you have now companies in Asia, US, UK, France. All of them, they have different preferences around the currency. But thanks to BNR, they had said, if you need exceptions, you can actually now report that, which I think makes sense and it brings flexibility. Of course, it has to kind of bring a kind of a quick issue on adaptation, but it's something feasible to actually cope up with.
That seems like it's more of a long process now. And so would you say it will have positive or negative consequences?
Well, I would say we're going to have maybe 1 quarter of investors saying like, wait a second, what? What's happening here? So that at least we explain. But after that, I believe it will be just the normal way. I don't think really it's going to cost us a lot. I don't think it's going to affect the industry a lot, because if you ask, at the end of the day, it was costly to us locals to transact in dollars. Think about it. Imagine you in the commercial space. You have a business, you're renting and they're charging in your dollars, yet the money you receive in Rwandan francs. That means you can never have a rental amount that is stable on your balance sheets. Never. It always changes. It's not predictable, right? So that is a challenge even in the financial sector in its own. The only people that I maybe see that are going to be having some challenges is probably people within that higher end of produce. That is like investors in the higher end real estate market, where they source a lot of finishes outside, because for them it's going to be a little bit challenging. They're going to have to be aware of the position of the currency and factor that into their numbers. But for us regular folks, for most regular folks, it's actually a good thing.
I'm guessing you've already had conversations also with your clients. How have they perceived it? Is there confusion? What are the pros and cons, especially when you're having the conversations with them on the changes? Okay,
great. Yeah, you can already see that Rwanda is a diverse country now. We have many nationalities here at the moment. We have many people from across the world, across Africa are here. Rwanda is becoming game, even we are in finance now. Rwanda wants to be a fintech hub on the continent. We want to be a talent hub on the continent. Already those two ambitions will push most of the Africans to be here. Will push many American Asians to be here. And then sometimes, of course, you will get business questions. Everyone can ask you, why actually this, right? Then that one points on a kind of, economy kind of maybe mobility or even management or even control, which is kind of on the one side good. But again, for businesses, that's why the problem is. For the workforce, it's okay. They have to comply with the rules, and it's okay because, again, conversion, it converts your money. It's not going to actually cut anything to money you have been being paid. If maybe you were getting 700 USD per month, now it's now across maybe 1 million, maybe 100 francs, when you can actually calculate. But businesses are the ones who are like, we can't manage to be buried in another currency. How can we be able actually? Sometimes you can even lose a business opportunity because we have a complexity in receiving your payments and even invoicing people. So that's how it is, and that's why at least there is this room of flexibility for actually when you're building global companies, you can request that kind of support to be allowed to actually build in their own currencies so that it becomes easier for us. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, also, yeah, looking at Umurava, as much as it's Rwandan, it's global.
Yes.
It's across the borders.
Yes.
And now, how does these Forex rules really impact your ability to stay competitive? Do you see it having any disadvantage?
So, yeah, I think one thing which everyone can ask, themselves, you can immediately see. But to me, if we define ourselves now, we are a continental platform when it comes to workforce building and talent building. And then we define ourselves as a global platform to access jobs, because we can actually receive jobs from anywhere. And we can now bring those jobs to Africans to deliver them. Actually, in the nature of our business, we have to be supporting multiple currencies. That's the challenge we have to face, because that's our business nature. But the best part is now to actually manage how to do that. But what it can affect Uganda, there's too much work in the kind of foreign exchange conversion. Sometimes when you bring internationals, they will be asking you, why do you pay me in Rwandan francs? I want to be paid in USD. Maybe I'm here for like 2 weeks or 1 week, right? So, but I think to me, again, when you look at the economy angle, it is useful and it makes sense. And it's the matter of now educating the users and the consumers to actually, comply.
Okay, and when you're looking at the change in the Forex changes, how will they impact the Rwandan economy?
Now, if it kind of gives back to the Rwandan franc, because you remember what I was explaining, the steps is you bring in your money and then you buy the currency. That creates stability. It gives value and oomph to the Rwandan franc, which is what is needed to stabilize and give strength to our currency. So I think eventually it's gonna help us in the long run, but these are really necessary steps that we need to take on so that our economy does not become a dollar economy.
Is there an opportunity for the sector to shift towards more local sourcing, or would it be unrealistic? Also, when you're looking at what Rwanda has to offer, the materials, and how do you see it?
A typical construction in Rwanda will use usually around 60% of locally sourced materials. That is cement, burnt clay bricks. You have some aluminum profiles are being done here, steel is done here, rebars are done here. So most of the things that really contribute to the house are being done here. The only remaining 40%, which can be small depending on what you're trying to achieve, is what is outside. So does it make sense to bring a factory that makes it locally? I think the market is small.
And that conversation really wraps up what we had in store for you today. You are with me, Naringwa Fiana Mothoni, and you're watching The Business Age.